Hello. Today I want to briefly describe Maslow's need hierarchy. I will talk about his concept of self-actualization and the development of humanistic psychology in other videos. For ease of recording, I've split the video into two parts. The need hierarchy was originally developed by the American psychologist Abraham Maslow as part of the development of what he came to term humanistic psychology. But it has long since become part of modern popular culture, including amongst business lecturers who like to use it in classes on marketing, consumer behavior and management. It has been widely commented on, some commentators suggesting further levels of need, and many seeking ways of applying it. It is also possible to use the need hierarchy in relationship to sociology and history, as I will outline in another video. During his work with monkeys, when he was doing his doctorate with Harry Harlow at the University of Wisconsin in the early 1930s, Maslow noted that some physical needs took precedence over others. Thus, for monkeys, as for humans, the need for water was more urgent than the need for food. Therefore, in satisfying basic needs, if the monkey was both hungry and thirsty, satisfying its thirst had priority. From these initial insights, Maslow developed his hierarchy, which he presented in his famous 1943 paper, A Theory of Human Motivation, commenting on details of it in various later works, such as his 1954 book, Motivation and Personality. In broad outline, the theory describes a hierarchy of needs, from the lowest, which are essential for our physical survival, up through major physiological needs, to what Maslow termed self-actualization. In later presentations of his theory, the levels are often portrayed as a set of 5 strata, arranged in a pyramid, with a broad base representing the individual's basic physiological needs, up through safety, social belongingness, and esteem needs, to the peak of self-actualization. Maslow believed that the individual normally had to obtain at least basic satisfaction of his or her lower-order needs before satisfying his higher-order needs. For example, someone who is desperately and chronically hungry is likely to be fixated on eating, to think and dream of food, and therefore not to be obsessed with buying a new car or reading an exciting new book on philosophy. In a simple demonstration of this idea, I have often asked my students to write down whatever it is that they most desire in the world, a good job, wealth, fame, marriage, world peace, or whatever. I then ask them to try to hold their breath for a minute or two, and then imagine what they most desire in the world. Unsurprisingly, what they most desire now is air. Breathing is the most basic need of all. In Maslow's terms, it is the most prepotent. Without air, we quickly die, and therefore satisfying that need takes precedence over all others. Let us now turn to the hierarchy itself, starting with the most basic physiological needs, which are essential to our physical survival. Uncontentiously, these include the needs for air, liquids to drink and food to eat, but also include the effective regulation of our body temperature, neither too hot nor too cold, the elimination of waste matter, and rest and sleep. More controversially, they include sex. This seems odd, in that while sexual desire is undoubtedly an enormously powerful motivation for many people, there don't seem to be any cases of people actually dying as a result of not having sex, and of course there are large numbers of religious people who are voluntarily celibate. Maslow is correct in highlighting the importance of this felt need, but sexual desire is clearly a different type of motivation than thirst and hunger, which if not sated can fairly quickly lead to physical collapse and death. Maslow himself notes that sex is a complex motivation. It is multi-determined, and plays a crucial role in the giving and receiving of love, as well as being a physiological need. It could also be used as an expression of dominance, or as a means of expressing one's own sense of identity. As to the purely physical needs, these are often very specific. Body temperature, for example, needs to be maintained quite close to 37 degrees centigrade. 98.4 for people still using Fahrenheit, and lack of specific nutrients can be deleterious, prompting specific cravings for foods that contain those nutrients. The next level of need, above those linked to physiological survival, are safety needs. These comprise what protects us from potentially dangerous objects and situations. When people are able to satisfy their basic physiological needs, they then crave safety, security, protection, and order. Deprived of these, they are likely subject to fear and anxiety. Probably most people who take university courses in basic psychology or marketing are not in imminent danger of death. But sadly, millions of people in the world face frequent threats to their safety, whether it be because they live in war zones, refugee camps, or neighborhoods with a high crime rate, or are homeless, whilst millions more regularly undertake hazardous work in order to pay for food and other basic physiological needs. Even amongst more affluent people, there may be fears of unemployment and economic uncertainty. For that matter, as Maslow noted, many children suffered from uncertainties as a result of arguments between their parents, or parental divorce, or even parents who were abusive. In all these cases, the child was subject to stress, coming to fear a world that seemed dangerous and unstable, and being less able to cope with new and challenging experiences than those children who were not subject to such stresses. These children might also be subject to nightmares and irrational fears. In such circumstances, stressed children craved certainty, routine, and order. For that matter, so too did adolescents and adults whose underlying safety needs were not met. They worried endlessly about their financial means. They regimented their lives with petty rituals and rules. They followed religions or philosophers of life that gave life meaning and coherence. They unquestioningly followed political leaders who offered them protection and security. The third level of needs are those linked to the need for love and belongingness. When physiological and safety needs are met, people seek friends and affectionate relationships, a sense of community, perhaps a sweetheart and children. If these cravings are not met, they feel lonely and socially anxious. Maslow regarded the non-fulfillment of this need for love and belongingness as the most common cause for psychological maladjustment and psychopathology in American society. The fourth level are esteem needs. These encompass the need for individual self-respect and a sense of confidence, competence, achievement, mastery, independence, and freedom. They also include the needs for respect from others and the desire for appreciation, recognition, attention, status, and fame. If these needs are not satisfied, the individual is likely to suffer from low self-esteem, feelings of helplessness, and a sense of inferiority, as discussed by Alfred Adler. For Maslow, these first four levels of needs were all deficit needs, D needs. They are all needed for our survival and to maintain our physical and mental health. They are genetically based and are experienced as instincts. They are largely unconscious in nature. If we lack any of them, then we have a sense of deprivation and feel the need for whatever it is that we lack. Deficit needs have got to be largely taken care of. If you are hungry, you are searching for food. If you are unsafe, you have to be on your guard all of the time. If you are lonely or lacking self-esteem, those needs are experienced as urgent. In extreme cases, deficit needs can become completely overpowering. The starving man, for example, wants nothing but food. Everything else seems to fade into insignificance. He dreams of food, and the ideal world is one in which he is fed. The principle of homeostasis applies, however, similar to the operation of a thermostat. We develop a hunger for what we lack, but the hunger stops once we are sated to an at least sufficient level. Once these needs are fulfilled, they cease to motivate us. We are thus all at our own particular level of salient or dominant needs. Those needs below it have been largely fulfilled and are no longer salient, but those above are still not salient. Sudden misfortune, however, the collapse of a career or a relationship, for example, will generally be sufficient to remind people of needs that they have otherwise taken for granted, revealing the underlying importance of the hierarchy. I will continue this in part 2.